The armorless expansion joint system consists of elastomeric concrete nosings and a preformed closed-cell foam joint seal. To begin, prepare the expansion joint area by sandblasting the substrate to thoroughly remove any dirt, debris, and remaining joint compounds. Mask off the adjacent substrate with 2 to 3 strips of duct tape. Poly sheeting may be used to provide additional protection of the substrate and will aid in the cleanup. Form the blockouts with styrofoam board. Pre-mix your A and B components of the epoxy adhesive. Combine the components in a clean bucket and mix for 3 to 5 minutes or until no marbling is present. Using a brush, apply the epoxy adhesive at approximately 20 mils to the horizontal and vertical surfaces of the blockout. Make certain that all nooks and pockets in the concrete are completely coated with the epoxy adhesive. Pre-mix the A and B components of the elastomeric concrete. Combine the components in a clean 5-gallon pail and mix for 3 to 5 minutes or until no marbling is present. Gradually add the aggregate component. Visually check to make certain that all aggregate is uniformly coated with the resin and that no dry spots are present. Place the elastomeric concrete in the blockouts while the epoxy adhesive is still wet. It is important to note that the elastomeric concrete is poured in both blockouts, keeping uniform pressure on the form board. The elastomeric concrete material can be placed in lifts. Spot placement of the pour will prevent the material from traveling or creeping while working on an elevated grade or slope. The spotted pours will also keep uniform pressure on the form board. Use a margin trowel to check for the proper elevation of your elastomeric concrete and strike off any high spots. The low spots can be topped off with additional elastomeric concrete material to bring it up to grade. Again, use your margin trowel to check for proper elevation. High spots, glossy areas, and rough spots can be ground down once the material has reached its initial cure with the use of a wire wheel. Continue checking for your proper elevation of the elastomeric concrete material. It is recommended that you allow 1 to 3 hours for the material to reach its initial cure prior to removing the forms. Please consult your manufacturer's representative for additional technical support. Once the elastomeric concrete material has cured, remove the protective duct tape and poly sheets. To remove the styrofoam foam board, release it with the use of a pry bar. Sandblasting is recommended to remove any existing foam board or glossy surface areas from the interior face of the elastomeric concrete. You may also use a grinding wheel or a wire wheel to remove any glossy areas and existing form agents. The grinding wheel will also be used to create a 1/4-inch chamfer on the interior face of the elastomeric concrete. Blow the area clean with clean compressed air. Use a rag dampened with denatured alcohol to wipe and remove any remaining dust particles. Again, mask off the adjacent substrate with 2 to 3 strips of duct tape and poly sheeting to provide additional protection to the substrate, which will also aid in the cleanup process when installing your preformed closed-celled foam. Reconfirm the joint opening size and the material size. The joint seal is typically 25% larger than that of the joint opening, but may vary with the manufacturer's recommendations and/or project requirements. Install the preformed foam using the epoxy adhesive. Pre-mix the A and B components of the epoxy adhesive. Combine the components in a clean bucket and mix for 3 to 5 minutes or until no marbling is present. By gloved hand, apply the epoxy adhesive at approximately 20 mils to the vertical face of the elastomeric concrete and also to the vertical sides of your preformed joint seal. Make certain that all areas of the concrete are properly coated with your epoxy adhesive, as well as the sides of your preformed foam material. Press the joint seal into the opening by applying firm pressure with your hands or with the use of the installation tools to insert the seal into the joint opening. Using a snake-like approach will prevent the material from stretching or elongating in the joint opening. Should the material be recessed too deep, use a margin trowel inserted at the edge of the joint opening to carefully pull the material upward prior to the adhesive setting. Use your installation tools again to check for the proper elevation of your joint seal. The margin trowel and a rag can be used to remove any existing epoxy from the surface area of the joint seal. Remove your protective duct tape and poly sheeting. Lastly, dampen a rag with denatured alcohol to wipe clean the surface area of the joint seal. The denatured alcohol will remove any existing epoxy material from the surface area of the seal. Traffic may be resumed within a half hour after placement of the joint at an ambient temperature of 70 degrees. Once again, check for proper elevation of your joint seal. To complete staged construction, a heating iron can be used to extend the length of the seal and to create directional changes. Hold the ends of the joint seal firmly to the heating iron for approximately 10 seconds and then firmly press together. Allow the welds to cool prior to applying pressure. Check seams and touch areas up with a heated trowel. Contact your manufacturer's representative for additional instructions.